In mid-February 2012, Xi Jinping paid a visit to the United States. Prior to this, at the 5th plenary session of the 17th Central Committee, he had already taken over as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, essentially locking in his position as the designated successor. As a result, he appeared extremely relaxed during this trip. On February 17, Xi Jinping appeared as a basketball fan at a sports center in Los Angeles to watch an NBA game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. This marked the first time a Chinese leader had appeared at an NBA arena. Observers noticed that seated in the front row near Xi was a somewhat chubby young man whose temperament bore a striking resemblance to Xi's own. He was constantly answering phone calls, exuding an air of confidence. This man was the legendary chief secretary of Xi Jinping, Zhong Shaojun. This was also his first appearance in the media and in the public eye. Beginning in July 2023, corruption cases within the rocket force began to surface one after another, gradually spreading to the General Armaments Department. As a result, 2 consecutive ministers of national defense were brought down. Both of these departments were areas in which Zhang Yuxia had cultivated deep roots over a long period of time. In November 2024, Central Military Commission member Miao Hua was officially announced to have fallen from power. Vice chairman of the Central Military Commission He Weidong subsequently went missing and later also fell. A large number of cadres with backgrounds in the 31st Group Army were successively taken down. In this personnel storm that swept across the entire military, however, one key figure remained conspicuously untouched, as if none of this had anything to do with him. That person was Zhong Shaojun, who at the time served as director of the General Office of the Central Military Commission. If one studies him carefully, one will discover that this figure, who occupies an extremely important position in Chinese politics, has astonishingly little publicly available information. One cannot even find a complete resume for him. So who exactly is Zhong Shaojun? How did he gain Xi Jinping's trust and become his personal secretary? What role did he play in the internal power struggles within the Central Military Commission? Why was he transferred to the National Defense University? And what does his future hold? Today, we will tell the story of Zhong Shaojun. Zhong Shaojun was born in October 1968 inches, Kaihua County, Kuzhou City, Zhejiang Province. Kuzhou is located at the junction of 4 provinces. It is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and forms a basin with geographical conditions very similar to those of Chengdu. The local people love spicy food, are straightforward in speech, place great value on loyalty, dare to act and take responsibility, and at times display a rather Buddhist, laid-back attitude, neither competing nor scrambling, but instead enjoying life. These traits differ considerably from the common stereotypes of Zhejiang people, who are often said to be unable to eat spicy food, to be fiercely competitive, and to grow wildly and aggressively. As a result, Kuzhou is considered the least Zhejiang-like city within Zhejiang province, and the temperament of its people coincides remarkably with the relaxed and comfortable lifestyle associated with Chengdu. These traits deeply permeated the soul of the young student Zhong, shaping his sense of loyalty and his outwardly non-competitive personality. Kaihua County, in particular, is known for producing secretaries. There is a saying in Zhejiang officialdom: Shaoxing produces private advisors, Jiangshan produces intelligence operatives, and Kaihua produces secretaries. This refers precisely to that phenomenon. Kaihua is also a hometown of the game of Go, in which Zhong Shaojun excelled, something that would later foreshadow his future career. In 1986, Zhong Shaojun was admitted to the computer science department of Hangzhou University. The old Hangzhou University had once passed the evaluation for the 211 project, and was later merged into Zhejiang University, making it a well-regarded local institution. Within Zhejiang's political circles, there has long been an active Hangzhou University secretary clique. Many provincial leaders in Zhejiang preferred to recruit Hangzhou University graduates as their secretaries, gradually forming this special group. Figures such as Li Qiang, Kai Chi, Chen Miner, and Huang Kunming all had early career secretaries who graduated from Hangzhou University. The current director of the Office of the President of the State, Han Ximing, is also a Hangzhou University graduate. At that time, Hangzhou University also had a senior alumnus 1 year ahead of Zhong Shaojun named Shen Haisheng, who later became a vice minister of the Central Propaganda Department and director of China Media Group. Among the older alumni was an elder named Zhang Shi, who later served as a standing committee member and secretary general of the Zhejiang Provincial Party Committee. He acted as chief secretary for both Zhang Dejiang and Xi Jinping, and later became party secretary of Zhejiang University. He had deep affection for Hangzhou University and was very willing to act as a talent scout. The newly appointed director of the State Council Councillor's Office, Zhao Xiaodong, was also personally cultivated by him and recommended to Li Qiang. During his university years, the young Zhong Shaojun had no earth-shattering achievements. In the politically sensitive year of 1989, he behaved very cautiously and obediently. He was not very talkative, but maintained good relationships with those around him. He did, however, have strong athletic talent and particularly enjoyed swimming and playing football. In 1990, after graduating from university, Zhong Shaojun entered the organization department of the Zhejiang Provincial Party Committee. This organization department was actually not as glamorous as people imagined. Much of the time, its work amounted to making wedding clothes for others. Because the department wielded enormous power, the promotion speed of most career officials within the system was fairly slow, and many cadres gradually became overaged. However, Zhong Shaojun was not a career line official. From the very beginning, he was assigned to the general office of the organization department. His responsibilities included document circulation, meeting organization, and logistical and service support for department leaders. It was here that the young Zhong Shaojun learned his first lesson in the workplace: how to discern a leader's intentions and how to serve leaders effectively. The secretary genes embedded deep in the bones of people from Kaihua gradually sprouted and grew within him as he aged. While working in the organization department, he encountered two senior women who would change his fate. The first was Shen Yueyo, who helped him resolve his deputy division level rank, allowing him to take the first step in his official career. After Xi Jinping took over as Minister of Organization, he also greatly appreciated Zhong Shaojun's ability to serve leaders well and appointed him as director of the General Office. At that time, the Deputy Secretary of the Provincial Party Committee in charge of organizational work was Qiao Chuanshu. During a brief period of interaction, this senior woman also developed a very favorable impression of Zhong Shaojun. In October 2002, Qiao Chuanshu led a team to Fujian to escort the new provincial governor Xi Jinping to Zhejiang. At that time, Xi Jinping's personal secretary in Fujian was Huang Jianxing, who was already 54 years old, 5 years older than Xi himself. Years earlier, Huang's son had died after missing timely medical treatment because Huang was too busy with work. As a result, Huang lost motivation for both life and work and was unwilling to transfer across provinces again. Therefore, Xi Jinping arrived in Zhejiang alone to take up his post and urgently needed to arrange a new secretary. Xi Jinping did not like to select secretaries from within the general office system. He preferred to second them from other systems, people with office experience or with whom he had some prior connection. For example, his secretary Chen Chengmao during the Fuzhou period had previously interviewed him, and Huang Jianxing, his secretary during his time as provincial leader, had previously been helped by Xi. However, in Zhejiang, Xi Jinping did not know any young people well. He did not entrust this matter to the then provincial party secretary general Jiang Shi because he did not yet fully trust cadres who had long developed locally. Instead, he turned to Qiao Chuanshu, who, like him, had been transferred from another province, and asked her to recommend a young person with office experience. After thorough investigation and careful consideration, Qiao recommended Zhong Shaojun, thereby changing the course of Zhong's life. Zhong Shaojun always remained deeply grateful for her kindness. Later, Qiao Chuanshu's son worked at China Central Television, and Zhong Shaojun consistently took good care of him. After retirement, Qiao Chuanshu continued to be appointed as head of various central inspection and supervision teams, remaining active on the political stage. In China, the actual content of a secretary's work varies greatly depending on the position. For example, the work and power of secretaries serving central ministries differ significantly from those serving local governments. Likewise, the work of secretaries serving top leaders differs greatly from that of secretaries serving ordinary leaders. The higher the leader, the more finely divided the secretary's duties become. For instance, a county party secretary's secretary does everything, drafting speeches, handling daily life errands, and more. But a provincial party secretary's secretary can be understood as a combination of a personal aide and a work assistant. Drafting speeches and arranging meetings are handled by specialized departments, while major work arrangements are overseen by the provincial party secretary general. The provincial party secretary's secretary mainly ensures smooth assistance in both daily life and work. For example, the secretary must confirm the party secretary's daily schedule with the secretary general, remind the leader at appropriate times, organize the newspapers and documents the leader needs to read each day, receive subordinates who come to pay visits, and, according to the leader's instructions, make phone calls to coordinate and arrange matters. For secretaries who enjoy a close relationship with the provincial party secretary, they may also accompany the leader for exercise or breakfast and help handle many personal affairs. For many provincial party secretaries whose spouses are not present, The secretary is also responsible for coordinating all matters from the moment the leader leaves his residence until he returns. Xi Jinping initially lived alone in Zhejiang. Later, his children came to Hangzhou for schooling and his parents-in-law moved in to accompany them. Peng Liyuan also gradually made Hangzhou her main base. Only then could it be said that she had truly settled down in Hangzhou. In the early stage, Zhong Shaojun was responsible for all services from the moment Xi Jinping left his residence in the morning until he returned at night. Xi's acceptance of him was also a gradual process. At first, Zhong Shaojun's personnel relationship remained within the organization department. Although he was promoted one rank to serve as a deputy minister-level official, the arrangement felt somewhat awkward. Only later was he formally transferred to the General Office of the Provincial Party Committee as a deputy director in charge of the 1st Secretariat Division. Zhong Shaojun was able to pass Xi Jinping's test quickly and become part of Xi's inner circle, thanks in part to one of his former leaders, Liu Jiangong, who had previously served as minister of the Zhejiang Provincial Organization Department. By that time, Liu Jiangong had already succeeded Xi Jinping as governor of Fujian province. After Xi moved to Zhejiang, some people attempted to investigate issues related to his time in Fujian. Liu Jiangong quietly provided support behind the scenes. Later on, this man seized the opportunity presented by the Fuzhou Chenkai case to launch an anti-corruption campaign that swept through the Fuzhou political scene, bringing down many officials who had been promoted during Xi Jinping's tenure in Fuzhou. Liu Jiangong then instructed people to collect materials and report Xi Jinping to the central authorities through various channels, putting Xi in an extremely embarrassing position. This was one of the most frustrating periods of Xi Jinping's life. At a critical moment, Zhong Shaojun resolutely executed Xi Jinping's countermeasures, helped gather intelligence, and successfully passed Xi's test. From then on, he was regarded by Xi as one of his own. Every morning, after arriving at the office, Comrade Zhong would first organize all kinds of newspapers and documents. Many of these documents required him to prepare summaries or proposed handling suggestions. He would then place them on the party secretary's desk in an order reflecting their relative importance and urgency. After that, he would confirm the party secretary's daily schedule with the secretary-general and other relevant personnel and remind the leader at the appropriate times. When visitors came to pay calls, Zhong Shaojun was responsible for receiving them, seeing them off, and serving tea and water. When the leader went out, he arranged vehicles and accompanied him throughout the trip. He needed to make phone calls to other people according to the leader's instructions, coordinate matters, and notify participants of meetings. For some meetings, he had to sit in or take notes. For some banquets, he also had to accompany the leader. In addition to these routine tasks, he often accompanied the leader for exercise or relaxation. Fortunately, Zhong Shaojun was particularly good at swimming, football, and go exactly the sports his boss enjoyed most. This was where the bond between him and his boss lay. Later, as Xi Jinping's trust in him deepened, Zhong Shaojun began to take on more important tasks, helping Xi maintain and cultivate certain younger relationships that needed to be carefully managed. For example, at the time, Zheng Qinghong's secretary was Chen Xin, born in 1970, roughly the same age as Zhong Shaojun. If Xi Jinping had dealt directly with Chen Xin, the age gap would have been too large. Therefore, Xi entrusted Zhong Shaojun with the task of maintaining relations with Chen Xin. Zhong was particularly adept at this kind of work, and before long, he and Chen Xin became good friends. Another example was Hu Haifeng, the son of Hu Jintao. This individual was very important to Xi Jinping, but Xi was more than a decade older than him, making it difficult to cultivate the relationship directly. After Chen Xi introduced Zhong Shaojun to Hu Haifeng, Zhong took on the responsibility of maintaining the day-to-day relationship with him. Later, the two even went to Tsinghua University together to pursue doctoral degrees, becoming classmates. Another case involved the son of Zhou Shengxian, who was then Minister of Environmental Protection, and who was also undertaking a temporary posting in Hangzhou. The task of maintaining relations with people like him was likewise assigned to Zhong Shaojun. Zhong fulfilled these tasks very satisfactorily. Later still, whenever Xi Jinping returned to Beijing, he would bring Zhong Shaojun with him. Each time Xi went to Beijing, he took the opportunity to reconnect with many senior leaders and old friends through private gatherings. Sometimes it was said that he would host several banquets in a single evening, of course, in separate rooms. During these occasions, tasks such as contacting these old acquaintances and preparing gifts could partially be handled by the Beijing liaison office, but the core work was always specifically entrusted to Zhong Shaojun. The daily communication with the secretaries of many central leaders was also specifically handled by Zhong Shaojun. According to online accounts, during Xi Jinping's 2006 banquet for the so-called Princeling Group at the Zhejiang building, the person responsible for subsequent coordination was Zhong Shaojun. In May 2006, a large-scale China Zhejiang States activity opened in New York. Xi Jinping led a massive Zhejiang provincial delegation on visits to various US states. Zhong Shaojun accompanied the delegation. However, during such overseas visits, this was actually the most relaxing time for him. With personnel from the Foreign Affairs Office and the Chinese embassy handling routine matters, he did not need to sit in on most of Xi's meetings. Apart from some schedule coordination and daily service tasks, he had plenty of free time and often went out drinking at bars with accompanying journalists in the evenings. In March 2007, after the Chen Liangyu case broke out, Xi Jinping was appointed party secretary of Shanghai. The entire Shanghai political scene was thrown into a state of panic as everyone awaited the judgment of the new party secretary. Xi Jinping did not trust the team left behind by Chen Liangyu and did not know where potential traps might be hidden. For this move, Xi brought only one person with him, Zhong Shaojun. Zhong's main task was to prevent missteps, making his work far more exhausting than it had been in Zhejiang. On his very first day in office, Zhong Shaojun rendered a notable service. The local reception staff, likely unaware of Xi Jinping's sensitivities, had arranged a large villa and a Mercedes-Benz for Xi. Zhong immediately realized that such arrangements were highly inappropriate and would damage Xi's public image if they became known. After reporting to Xi, he promptly demanded that the arrangements be corrected. For itineraries arranged by the General Office, Zhong Shaojun needed to verify them personally. Draft speeches prepared by others also had to be reviewed by him in advance to prevent the elementary school PhD from misreading characters. He also had to promptly follow up on the implementation of Xi Jinping's instructions and sometimes even conduct on-site supervision. Xi Jinping often stayed up late reading documents, and Zhong Shaojun stayed with him throughout. Zhong knew that everyone in the general office was watching him closely. As a result, he kept an extremely low profile during this period, being very cautious even when going out to eat. He essentially lived and worked in the office. Every morning after arriving at the office, Comrade Zhong would first organize all kinds of newspapers and documents. Many of these documents required him to prepare summaries or proposed handling suggestions. He would then place them on the party secretary's desk in an order reflecting their relative importance and urgency. After that, he would confirm the party secretary's daily schedule with the Secretary General and other relevant personnel and remind the leader at the appropriate times. When visitors came to pay calls, Zhong Shaojun was responsible for receiving them, seeing them off, and serving tea and water. When the leader went out, he arranged vehicles and accompanied him throughout the trip. He needed to make phone calls to other people according to the leader's instructions, coordinate matters, and notify participants of meetings. For some meetings, he had to sit in or take notes. For some banquets, he also had to accompany the leader. In addition to these routine tasks, he often accompanied the leader for exercise or relaxation. Fortunately, Zhong Shaojun was particularly good at swimming, football, and go exactly the sports his boss enjoyed most. This was where the bond between him and his boss lay. Later, as Xi Jinping's trust in him deepened, Zhong Shaojun began to take on more important tasks, helping Xi maintain and cultivate certain younger relationships that needed to be carefully managed. For example, at the time, Zheng Qinghong's secretary was Chen Xin, born in 1970, roughly the same age as Zhong Shaojun. If Xi Jinping had dealt directly with Chen Xin, the age gap would have been too large. Therefore, Xi entrusted Zhong Shaojun with the task of maintaining relations with Chen Xin. Zhong was particularly adept at this kind of work, and before long he and Chen Xin became good friends. Another example was Hu Haifeng, the son of Hu Jintao. This individual was very important to Xi Jinping, but Xi was more than a decade older than him, making it difficult to cultivate the relationship directly. After Chen Xi introduced Zhong Shaojun to Hu Haifeng, Zhong took on the responsibility of maintaining the day-to-day relationship with him. Later, the two even went to Tsinghua University together to pursue doctoral degrees, becoming classmates. Another case involved the son of Zhou Shengxian, who was then Minister of Environmental Protection, and who was also undertaking a temporary posting in Hangzhou. The task of maintaining relations with people like him was likewise assigned to Zhong Shaojun. Zhong fulfilled these tasks very satisfactorily. Later still, whenever Xi Jinping returned to Beijing, he would bring Zhong Shaojun with him. Each time Xi went to Beijing, he took the opportunity to reconnect with many senior leaders and old friends through private gatherings. Sometimes it was said that he would host several banquets in a single evening, of course, in separate rooms. During these occasions, tasks such as contacting these old acquaintances and preparing gifts could partially be handled by the Beijing liaison office, but the core work was always specifically entrusted to Zhong Shaojun. The daily communication with the secretaries of many central leaders was also specifically handled by Zhong Shaojun. According to online accounts, during Xi Jinping's 2006 banquet for the so-called Princeling Group at the Zhejiang building, The person responsible for subsequent coordination was Zhong Shaojun. In May 2006, a large-scale China Zhejiang States activity opened in New York. Xi Jinping led a massive Zhejiang provincial delegation on visits to various US states. Zhong Shaojun accompanied the delegation. However, during such overseas visits, this was actually the most relaxing time for him. With personnel from the Foreign Affairs Office and the Chinese embassy handling routine matters, he did not need to sit in on most of Xi's meetings. Apart from some schedule coordination and daily service tasks, he had plenty of free time and often went out drinking at bars with accompanying journalists in the evenings. In March 2007, after the Chen Liangyu case broke out, Xi Jinping was appointed party secretary of Shanghai. The entire Shanghai political scene was thrown into a state of panic, as everyone awaited the judgment of the new party secretary. Xi Jinping did not trust the team left behind by Chen Liangyu and did not know where potential traps might be hidden. For this move, Xi brought only one person with him, Zhong Shaojun. Zhong's main task was to prevent missteps, making his work far more exhausting than it had been in Zhejiang. On his very first day in office, Zhong Shaojun rendered a notable service. The local reception staff, likely unaware of Xi Jinping's sensitivities, had arranged a large villa and a Mercedes-Benz for Xi. Zhong immediately realized that such arrangements were highly inappropriate and would damage Xi's public image if they became known. After reporting to Xi, he promptly demanded that the arrangements be corrected. For itineraries arranged by the General Office, Zhong Shaojun needed to verify them personally. Draft speeches prepared by others also had to be reviewed by him in advance, to prevent the elementary school PhD from misreading characters. He also had to promptly follow up on the implementation of Xi Jinping's instructions and sometimes even conduct on-site supervision. Xi Jinping often stayed up late reading documents, and Zhong Shaojun stayed with him throughout. Zhong knew that everyone in the general office was watching him closely. As a result, he kept an extremely low profile during this period, being very cautious even when going out to eat. He essentially lived and worked in the office. At the 17th Party Congress in 2007, Xi Jinping was elected to the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee, becoming the designated heir of the Chinese Communist Party and entering a 5-year period of strategic restraint. This time, when he moved to Beijing, Xi Jinping did not bring Ding Shuixiang with him. Once again, he brought only Zhong Shaojun. Zhong Shaojun's new position was head of the political group of the Research Office of the General Office of the Central Committee, a post that Ling Jihua had once held. These 5 years were probably the easiest 5 years of Zhong Shaojun's entire career as a secretary. Having already become a state leader, Xi Jinping was now surrounded by additional staff such as personal physicians, security guards, and chefs. Peng Liyuan also began to prioritize family life and withdrew from most of her performances. As a result, Zhong Shaojun was no longer needed to handle most aspects of daily life. At work, Xi Jinping spent most of his time going through the motions. Wherever he went, he followed standard procedures and read prepared scripts. There were few genuinely urgent matters. What Zhong Shaojun needed to do was the same as what his leader needed to do: keep an even lower profile, avoid exposure, and leave no handle for outsiders to seize upon. During this period, Zhong Shaojun transferred his wife to work at the China Development Bank. He was generally able to return home on time every day and live something close to a normal life. In 2008, taking advantage of this relatively relaxed period, Zhong Shaojun enrolled in a doctoral program at the School of Public Administration at Tsinghua University. This was not for the sake of the degree itself, but in order to accompany his close friend, Hu Haifeng. In 2009, under arrangements made by Chen Ji and Xi Jinping, Hu Haifeng took up a position at the Tsinghua Yangtze River Delta Research Institute in Zhejiang and simultaneously held a temporary post in Jiaxing. All of the detailed coordination and arrangements involved in this process were handled by Zhong Shaojun. Also in 2008, at Zhong Shaojun's persuasion, Zheng Qinghong's secretary Chen Xin began a temporary posting in Ningbo. The person who helped Chen Xin coordinate all of this was likewise Zhong Shaojun. In 2010, Jiang Zemin's beloved grandson Jiang Zicheng began founding Boyu Capital. Zhong Shaojun had no background in finance and was therefore unable to guide him in the way that Zhou Liang, Wang Qishan's secretary, could. All he could do was frequently have meals with young Jiang, convey Uncle Xi's concern for him, and maintain the relationship. During this period, Zhong Shaojun's primary task increasingly became that of serving as his boss's eyes and ears, collecting and probing for information. He maintained close communication with the secretaries of former senior leaders. For example, he frequently contacted Li Bingjun, Zhu Rongji's secretary, allowing him both to learn about Zhu's situation and to convey Xi Jinping's goodwill. Similarly, Zhong Shaojun also maintained close contact with the secretaries of political allies such as Wang Qishan, helping these bosses transmit intelligence to one another. At the 18th Party Congress in 2012, Xi Jinping finally ascended to the top position. However, he was still some distance away from becoming the undisputed core. Although Ling Jihua had been transferred to the United Front Work Department, he continued to extend his reach into the General Office through various means to gather intelligence. Under the unified arrangements of Li Jianshu, Zhong Shaojun and others launched a cleanup campaign within the General Office of the Central Committee. Zhong was the first to detect suspicious behavior on the part of Zhu Guofeng, Xi Jinping's second secretary, and quickly transferred him to the supply and marketing cooperative system, thereby removing the nail that Ling Jihua had placed at the boss's side. To address security concerns, they replaced all guards directly responsible for Xi Jinping's security with soldiers who had backgrounds in field armies, placing them under Zhong Shaojun's direct command. At that time, the director of the Central Guard Bureau was Cao Qing, a figure aligned with Hu Jintao's faction. Xi Jinping very much wanted to replace him, but could not immediately find a suitable pretext, as Cao Qing had always been cautious. Zhong Shaojun knew that these guards had a bad habit when traveling abroad. They often exploited their exemption from inspection to smuggle goods for personal profit. As a result, they leaked news of guards smuggling ivory to foreign media. Using this scandal, they transferred Cao Qing to the Beijing military region and successfully took control of the Guard Bureau's command. In 2013, Xi Jinping was about to launch an unprecedented anti-corruption campaign within the military. His first step was to send Zhong Shaojun to the General Office of the Central Military Commission, appointing him as Deputy Director and concurrently Director of the Office of the Chairman of the Central Military Commission. Although the title of the position had changed, Zhong Shaojun still followed Xi closely every day. This post had previously been held by Wang Rulin, Deng Xiaoping's secretary, by Jia Ting'an, Jiang Zemin's secretary, and by Wu Ziming, Hu Jintao's secretary. It was the position most trusted by successive top leaders. With the exception of Wang Ruilin, none of these individuals had ever served a single day as a soldier. As director of the chairman's office, Zhong Shaojun led a team of secretaries. Many concrete tasks no longer required his personal handling. Nevertheless, he continued to check every detail meticulously, for fear that any mistake might occur. In addition to routine secretarial work, Zhong Shaojun established his own information channels, collecting extensive evidence of corruption among senior military leaders and contributing to the takedown of figures such as Xu Kaiho. In particular, he strengthened supervision over the implementation of Xi Jinping's various instructions, using every possible means to enhance the execution capacity of the military's general office system. In 2017, Zhong Shaojun succeeded Qin Shengxiang as director of the General Office of the Central Military Commission and was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General. In addition to continuing to serve concurrently as director of the Chairman's Office, he also held multiple other posts: Director of the Office for Military Reform and Organizational Structure, Director of the Office of the Leading Group for Military Reform, and member of the Military Election Commission. After the military reforms, the former four general headquarters ceased to exist, and the responsibilities and functions of the Central Military Commission General Office were greatly expanded. It became the core hub of the entire CMC's operations, equivalent to the role of the General Office of the CCP Central Committee within the party as a whole. Zhong Shaojun was no longer merely a secretary. He effectively became the military's chief of staff, the top person responsible for information and intelligence work across the entire armed forces. Major personnel matters also could not proceed without his involvement. For Zhong Shaojun, who had never served a single day in the military, this was indeed an extremely demanding role. Under Zhong Shaojun's leadership, the CMC General Office became the vanguard in implementing the chairman responsibility system, employing various measures to ensure Xi Jinping's absolute control over the military. The greatest defining feature of the CCP's system of governing the military can be summed up in one sentence: secretaries govern the military, servants govern the military. In Deng Xiaoping's later years, Deng's chief secretary Wang Ruilin exercised real administrative authority over the military on Deng's behalf. He even directly shaped the composition of the Central Military Commission leadership, arranging for fellow townsmen Qi Haodian and Zhang Wanian from Zhaoyan, Shandong, to serve as vice chairman of the CMC. At the time, Yu Yongbo, director of the General Political Department, obeyed Wang Rulin's instructions unquestioningly and dared not show the slightest resistance. During the Jiang Zemin era, Jiang's chief secretary Jia Ting'an, serving as deputy director of the General Political Department, wielded enormous influence over the appointment and removal of officers above the division level. His opinions frequently overrode those of the then directors of the General Political Department, Li Jinai and Zhang Yang. Xi Jinping absorbed the lessons of the Dengjiang system and intended to continue the traditional model of secretary governs the military. This was the original reason he sent Zhong Shaojun into the military. According to Xi's initial plan, beyond his work in the general office, Zhong Shaojun was also supposed to vet key personnel transfers and provide advice to Xi on cadre appointments. If nothing unexpected occurred, Zhong Shaojun's next post should have been Executive Deputy Director of the General Political Department or even something higher. This would have mirrored the path of Zheng Qinghong, first running the general office, then taking charge of the organization department, as well as the paths of his two predecessors, Wang Rulin and Jia Ting'an, who first ran the CMC general office before moving on to the general political department. After the military reforms, the CMC general office became even more important. Zhong Shaojun's predecessor Qin Shengxiang was directly promoted to political commissar of the Navy. Zhong Shaojun, in theory, should have enjoyed an equally bright future. However, Zhong Shaojun did not end up with the same bright prospects. The system of secretary governs the military that Xi Jinping had anticipated ultimately failed to materialize. Zhong Shaojun's influence within the military never reached the level attained by his predecessors. From the limited actions targeting the Shu Qiliang faction in 2019 to the eruption of the rocket force corruption cases in 2023, Zhong Shaojun did not play a particularly decisive role. In contrast, personnel arrangements at the senior levels of the military during these years more clearly reflected the intentions of Zhang Yuxia and Miao Hua, with most appointments going to members of these two factions. Especially after the rocket force scandal broke, military appointments were almost entirely drawn from the Miao Hua faction. After nearly a decade occupying a core position within the military, Zhong Shaojun still failed to cultivate a reserve force of cadres for Xi Jinping. As director of the CMC General Office, Zhong Shaojun demonstrated qualified execution capability, but failed to demonstrate sufficient political planning ability. Simply put, he was competent as a personal secretary and assistant, but unqualified as a political secretary and power broker. This was largely because he had long served only as Xi Jinping's personal secretary, playing an executional role within Xi's political strategies rather than a planning one. Moreover, he lacked experience working within the military, lacked networks within the armed forces, and was unfamiliar with the internal logic governing military personnel operations. One must understand that Comrade Miao Hua had spent his entire career as a political commissar and was deeply seasoned in military political affairs. When he was parachuted into the Navy back then, it took him only 3 years to subdue the proud naval commanders, turning the Navy into his own talent base and identifying a large pool of usable personnel. After 10 years in a core military position, Director Zhong still failed to build a reserve of generals for Chairman Xi, nor did he offer a fundamentally new concept for governing the military. Furthermore, when Miao Hua and others submitted a large number of policy proposals to the General Secretary, Zhong Shaojun was unable to articulate a clear 1, 2, 3, failed to identify the underlying problems behind these proposals, and did not perform the role of policy gatekeeper for Xi Jinping. This, in turn, contributed to Xi Jinping's repeated reversals and vacillation in military decision-making. One detail alone illustrates the limits of Zhong Shaojun's ability. In an age of information transparency, even after reaching such a high position, he still made every effort to conceal his own information. This was not low-key behavior, it was backwardness. Beginning in 2023, the Chinese military entered a bizarre phase of internal chaos. Miao Hua and He Weidong seized upon the rocket force corruption cases to purge large numbers of Zhang Yuxia's people, while simultaneously installing their own loyalists and forming their own power bases. In the first quarter of 2024, when Miao Hua and He Weidong were riding high, Zhong Shaojun was transferred to the National Defense University to serve as political commissar, with promotion to full general pending. If one does not consider Zhong Shaojun's relationship with Xi Jinping and does not compare him with figures such as Wang Rulin, Jia Ting'an, and Qin Shengxiang, this might appear to be a reasonable appointment. However, once such comparisons are made, it becomes clear that this was not the optimal promotion path. Qin Shengxiang had been directly promoted to political commissar of the Navy, while Zhong's other predecessors had all moved into deputy roles within core departments such as the General Political Department and had been promoted to full general. After the military reforms, the CMC General Office became even more important and should logically have been rewarded with better arrangements. Although the National Defense University is not a low-ranking institution, it nonetheless represents a departure from the core decision-making center. It no longer allows one to remain close to Xi Jinping and therefore cannot be considered an ideal promotion path. The position most suitable for Zhong Shaojun should have been Executive Deputy Director of the General Political Department. However, Miao Hua not only did not allow Zhong Shaojun to join his own faction, but also installed his own people into the general office. Miao Hua's trusted subordinate Fang Yongxiang, who came from the 31st Group Army, quickly succeeded Zhong Shaojun. As a result, both the CMC General Office and the General Political Department became almost entirely uniform in composition. From that point onward, Zhong Shaojun disappeared from news footage of Xi Jinping meeting foreign guests or inspecting the military. This mysterious chief secretary once again vanished from the political stage. With this event as a marker, Miao Hua and He Weidong's power within the military reached its peak. There is an old Chinese saying, "When prosperity reaches its extreme, decline begins." In the second half of 2024, Xu Qiliang and Zhang Yuxia launched a major counteroffensive. Faced with shared interests, the two veteran military leaders jointly complained to Xi Jinping, accusing Miao Hua and He Weidong of forming cliques, engaging in factionalism, and using anti-corruption as a tool to eliminate rivals. The once high-spirited Miao Hua, He Weidong, and their allies were successively brought down, and in the blink of an eye, Miao Hua and He Weidong became prisoners. Whether Zhong Shaojun played any role in this massive upheaval within the Chinese military remains unknown. In fact, the fundamental cause still lies with Xi Jinping himself. Most of his lifelong experience in political struggle has been accumulated within the realm of party affairs. When it comes to the military, he has largely relied on paper warfare, having never possessed long-term hands-on management experience. At one moment, he believes the recommendations of one faction and launches anti-corruption campaigns. At another moment, he credulously accepts the advice of a different faction and begins to target so-called conspirators. This has resulted in alternating waves of purges between rival groups, producing extreme disorder, because he does not allow any single faction to grow too powerful. He also refuses to let the victorious side fill the positions vacated by those who have fallen, as doing so would cause the balance of power to collapse. Therefore, even though Miao Hua and He Weidong have already come under investigation, Xi Jinping still will not allow Zhang Yuxia's people to step in to replace them. At the same time, because there are so many cadres with backgrounds in the 31st Group Army, he has been unable for the time being to find another group capable of replacing them. As a result, many key positions have simply been left vacant, causing confusion among outside observers. The military, too, will remain in a state of chaos for some time to come. From this perspective, the National Defense University is actually not a bad place to be. It offers a way to avoid this violent back-and-forth power struggle and to wait for the situation to stabilize before returning to the mainstream political track. As a cadre born in 1968 and one of the youngest members of the Central Committee at the 20th Party Congress, Zhong Shaojun remains one of the very few officials of his age group who have had direct contact with Xi Jinping and have been absolutely trusted by him. Given the special nature of the military system, he could, at the appropriate time, be treated as a special case and exempted from the 7-up, 8-down age rule, thereby becoming a member of a post-1970 successor team. Therefore, Zhong Shaojun's future still holds limitless possibilities. However, having experienced this round of setbacks, he should accelerate the improvement of his own capabilities. After all, Chairman Xi still prefers capable confidants. Confidants who cannot get things done will also be abandoned by him, for example, Liu Yangsheng. Alright, that concludes today's story. Thank you all.